And welcome to the Alouettes Flightdeck, podcast dedicated to Montreal Alouettes football, presented by our good friends over at Sport Buff. Where if you use the promo code ALOUETSFlightDeck10 at checkout, you will save 10% off your entire order. So go to sportbuffshop.com, use the code, save 10%, and support local. I'm Tim Capper. You can find me on X at Repact. That's REPPACT.
And I'm Cliffy D. You can also find me on X over at Cliffy D.
Give me all the talk. It's like, I always say, you're always just, it's like, quick, I'm going to get into it. It's Cliff. That's it. Let's go. You know,
On the ball.
On the ball. How are you doing, buddy? Considering that the loss that we've come off of, I know we did talk to it more in, we're not going to really talk much about the loss itself. There's a couple things that we did want to revisit, though, from the Alouettes loss to BC. Go over, at least give the guys the props when it came to stats and stuff like that, because I know that's one thing that they really didn't do. And I do want to thank everybody, by the way. You have made the, I guess we could say it was a trial, even though it was a one-episode trial of putting Flightdeck Live on audio only, and it is done quite well. So we thank you very much for listening. If you happen to miss the show, as a reminder, if you do miss the show, if you don't, besides audio, we are live. It is. We will be live after every home or away game. Stay tuned to all of our socials. We will be live this week from the home finale at Percival Molson Stadium. So stay tuned for all that. But thanks. It's something I've been wanting to try for a little bit, Cliff, and it just goes to show that whether you watch it live or on tape, people like to hear us talk about what we talk about.
Absolutely. So that's a pleasant surprise, as you said. So that's when I think about a live show, the whole idea is tune in live because it's happening live. But yes, a lot of people do catch the replay, and we definitely appreciate it. And whether you want to watch on YouTube or listen to it, I guess however you're consuming this podcast, I'm good with that as well. So once again, thank you to each and everyone who tunes in, whether you watch it or listen. Either way, it's all good.
Yep. So the episodes, we have determined now that if you don't watch Flightdeck live, the audio version will only be available approximately 24 hours after the fact. It's a lot better watching us live on tape, whatever it may be. So
that's it. And listen, win, lose, or draw, as they say, we'll be live. And we got to experience that this year. We were live after wins. We were live after losses. And the one draw that the Alouettes had, we were live for that as well.
Yep, exactly. Again, Alouettes do lose to the BC Lions 27-3. Again, we went over to quite a bit in detail on Flightdeck Live. It's just a matter of giving some of these guys the props and going from there. We do have a guest this week, which we'll be talking about here in a couple of minutes. And also we're going to be talking about the nominations for each team's year-end awards came out today. And we will be talking about the Alouettes nominations. Your boys were pretty spot on after talking about it the last couple of weeks ago, but you and I were pretty spot on, and I was pretty damn happy about that too. So,
oh, definitely. It's like we know what we're talking about sometimes, which is always
we're
always reassuring, it's like we're not just talking out of our rear ends here. Like we do the research, we check things out, we follow up on things. We try to be as journalistic as possible.
Yeah, no fan club here. No fan club here. As far as I'm concerned, media all the way, baby. Media all the way.
There you go.
Cody and Davis Alexander both threw for 67 yards. The leading rusher was Stevie Scott III. He had 33 yards. Davis Alexander had 28. STE had 17, and Cody Fajardo had 16. Just as a reminder, too, that each of these guys did have a half when it came to passing when they were under center. Receiving wise, the leading receiver for the Alouettes was Tyler Sneed at 28 yards. KJG 27. Stevie Scott 20. As I mentioned it on Flightdeck Live, it's good to see that Stevie Scott is becoming accustomed to what most Alouette running backs do. Not only do they run, but they're also catching balls out of the backfield. Mm-hmm. Charles Rambo 18, Cole Speaker 17, STE 15, and Nate Bahar 9. Did I forget anybody? Don't think I did. Sacks, the only sack went to a guy who's had a tough year all year, but it went to Tyrell Richards. It was nice to see him get a sack. Really, really was.
Absolutely.
And it was Tyrese Beverly. You know, it's funny. You know, we've been talking about how strong Ty has, you know, what is a year that he has had, and obviously with the accolades that he received today. He wasn't even the league leader when it came to tackles in the game. That went tied at Darnell Sankey and to Wes Sutton. Besides that, by the way, Ty and both Wes Sutton each had an interception. Again, today was their first day of practice for the Alouettes. And by the way, I don't know the reasoning behind it, but are you surprised, Cliff, that the Alouettes are technically only having 2 full practices this week?
Not particularly. I mean, let's not forget. I mean, the game on Saturday is important. There's no question about that. It's the final regular season home game for the Alouettes and final regular season game for the Alouettes as well. So you want to have as many healthy players as possible, and not that practice. Well, that's right. I always say warm-ups is where you want to avoid, because that seems to be where the Alouettes seem to get hurt, is in the warm-ups. Not necessarily in practice, but in warm-ups. I guess the thought is, you know what you have to do for this game. There's not a whole lot to practice in the sense of, your traditional practices as far as drills, and just the goal is always to be 1% better. That's one thing they say. Go 1-0 every week, be 1% better, all that good stuff. But I guess I'm fine with just 2 practices. I mean, really especially at this point too, you kind of know what you're going with. You know who's going to be playing. You know what to expect. There's not going to be a whole lot of surprises as far as I'm concerned. I think the Alouettes just have to get through this game and use the bye week properly to see who they're going to be playing in the Eastern Final, and that's ultimately the goal. I don't want to say they're looking ahead or looking past the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Like, I think this game is important for the Alouettes in the sense of going into the playoffs with a bit of momentum, but at the same time, you also don't want to. This is not a case of having to leave everything out on the field. You don't want to kill yourself just to get into the playoffs because you're already there. So it's I think it's a bit of a delicate balance, and I think that maybe just 2 practices and probably a walkthrough the day before.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's sufficient enough as far as doing what it takes to get ready for this game on Saturday.
Yeah. Before we talk about some other stuff, and being that we're playing Winnipeg this week, we brought in a guy who we've had on many times before. Knows the Blue Bombers very well. We're going to be speaking with Darrin Bauming from Bonfire Sports. Mm-hmm. Great interview will be fun. So to make sure you guys do tune in or stay tuned in. Yes. A couple of things that we wanted to update when it came to the game itself, and then we'll just go from there because, like everybody else, we're leaving it the way that it is. It's done. It's done. Obviously, again, the Alouettes need to improve on first, on their first quarter stats and how they play, and then on the third quarter stats. And one thing I did check, and I really wasn't able to do a little bit more, is that the Alouettes kind of had this problem last year too. And to me, one of the biggest, at least to me, one thing that really stands out is that how well a team can do in a game, and how a game can start off when it comes to gaining momentum is a team's first drive. The first ever drive of the game. Unfortunately for the Alouettes this year, Cliff, it's been rough going once again. I mean, I remember what it was last year, making a few comments about it, but the Alouettes have had only 2 drives where they have scored a touchdown first. That's a problem. That really is. And their last 4 games, which we've known where they've been anemic offense just to start the game itself, they've punted. Yeah. So it's something that needs to, hopefully they can correct, get a game, get a drive going this game where they does end up with a touchdown, and hopefully it'll show with things to come going into the playoffs and whatnot. But again, issues that they've had most of the year that are very frustrating that hopefully they'll be able to correct. But we're already at game 21, so
see, that's just it. And it's like at this point, a lot of that is learned behavior, and you can't just unlearn it so quickly. That's a big thing. Like, and it's easy to say, why are you doing this? Why are you playing like this? Why are you making these calls when you know it's not working versus trying something different at this point of the year? It's a tough balance. And is a lot of this because they clinched so early and truly, like, they haven't played a meaningful game in the standings in quite some time. It's so tough. It's tough because I don't want to say the fire has gone out with this team. I don't believe it has, but at the same time, we're seeing and hearing a lot of the same things over and over again, and that's concerning to me. Like, they know they've got to be better. They keep saying they've got to get better at this. They got to work on this, and as you said, at this point of the year, you know what your identity is. You know what kind of a football team you have, and you can't just flip a switch and it's automatically going to be all better come playoff time. It doesn't work that way. That's why I think it's so important for the Alouettes to establish some sort of momentum going into this game against Winnipeg. I mean,
100%.
We keep talking about how you got to set the tone right away. You got to punch him in the mouth right away and really establish that dominance. And that's something the Alouettes have not been able to do in a long, long time. And they're not those plucky underdogs. They can't be thinking like, you can't be a Grey Cup champion and play the scrappy underdog thing. It doesn't work. It doesn't mesh. You know what I mean? Like, it's not the look they should be going for. I mean, Ottawa can get away with that. Saskatchewan, to an extent, can get away with that. BC Lions, even in the West, can get away with that. Like, you are one of the top tier teams in this league. You can't be playing like you're fighting for your life. You should be the big dog. You should be the one, kicking sand in the face of the 98-pound weakling, so to speak. And why the Alouettes haven't been able to do that, unfortunately, I don't have the answer for that. I mean, that's really how it should be. I mean, they started off the year that way. And I think at that point, starting off the year, they wanted to prove that Grey Cup win wasn't a fluke, that they didn't just get lucky. They weren't just the best team that day. They truly were a team that was built to compete and to win. And that's exactly what they were doing for the first 2/3 of the season. It's just with this final stretch right now. And again, unfortunately, this is where the games are so important. And that's where things are just starting to peter out just a little bit. And it's troubling. And because you can't just automatically say, oh, they're just saving themselves to the playoffs. Well, guess what? I mean, you've got to almost be in that mindset of the playoffs are now. Like, yes, a loss will not eliminate you, but at the same time, you got to almost play with that sense of urgency. And I just haven't seen that from the Alouettes in quite some time, at least not since Labor Day even. So to me, I think this is what makes this game so important for the Alouettes on Saturday is you got to come out ready to go. You got to come out hot as a pistol and just keep at it and just really set the tone. Make Winnipeg, if Winnipeg's going to win this game, and believe me, they're motivated to win, because if they win, they get to host the Western Final. And no doubt they're going to want that bye week as well to rest any injuries and things like that. They're going to be motivated to come and play in Montreal. Montreal has to be just as motivated. Like, they don't have to kill themselves in the effort, but at the same time, they got to be just as motivated, and they've really got to set the tone in their own house. Simply put, that's what we got to do, and just they got to own this game as best as they can.
Yeah, the Alouettes, Cliff, have only had 5 drives this year where they've come away with points. Opening drives, 5, and none in the last 6. So yes, I agree with you.
It doesn't bode well.
They need to come out and set the tone. That's the thing. Set the tone.
Yeah. Let's not
also,
forget, you're going to be in your own house. At last check, over 20,000 tickets have been sold. So you got Alouettes Nation behind you. I mean, if you can't get excited for this game, I mean, I don't know what to tell you at this point. If you can't get excited for this, how the hell are you going to get excited in 2 weeks for the Eastern Final? I mean, simply put, like, this is now. Like, you really do have to be in that mindset of the playoffs are now.
Yeah, right here, right now, right here, right now. The couple of other things we did follow up about Dominic Davis. As I mentioned last night, we reported that Dominic was out for the second half. He was in civvies on the sideline that we had seen, and we did find out today that the issue was, at least they're officially listing it, Cliff, as a back issue, and he didn't practice today. So it makes me wonder going forward. I guess it's possible that Morgan will be activated and be a active part of the roster. But question is now, I understand it's the last week of the regular season. Who's going to take short yardage? Because Dominic Davis is a big guy. He is and that's one of the main reasons why we got him after Caleb Evans went down for the year.
Mm-hmm.
Will it be Cody? Will it be Davis? Or will it be? You know what I mean? So that's an interesting twist to this, unless all of a sudden there's something miraculous. Well, I guess we'll find out when the rosters come out and the depth charts come out on Friday.
Or do you do like what Hamilton and BC have been doing and let your fullback be the short yardage QB?
But have they had the experience? That's the issue.
True. I'm just saying it is an option.
And if anything, it would probably be either Davis or it will be Cody.
Yeah, because asking James Morgan to step into that role immediately, I mean, that's at this point of the year, with the limited experience that James Morgan has had on this roster, it's a pretty big ask. I mean, even if this game doesn't count in the standings and nothing's going to change in that regard, this isn't the time to be experimental. You don't want to have him there just in case. You want to have him there just in case, but not necessarily be able to perform something like this. I mean, even if really all you have to do is fall forward, even then, it's still something you want somebody with experience taken care of. So yes, I definitely think.
Really? Didn't help last week on the in the game itself. There's multiple times that we were within the 10, and that's one thing that Coach Moss mentioned today too, at the post practice scrum.
It's tough. So, I mean, like I said, you're out coaching yourself when it comes to stuff like that.
Yeah,
it's just fall forward. If it's a goal line stand, fall forward. Especially if you're 6'4" or whatever Dominic Davis is. I mean, you don't have to reinvent the wheel here. Just fall forward.
Yeah. So we'll see. Now, the last thing we wanted to talk about, and I know you wanted to talk about, and I applauded you for bringing this up because I think this is really cool. One of the as I have always loved, and they don't always post it, and that's I think it's probably one of the few things that does frustrate me, is that they do post the post game. I don't want to call it a pep talk. Post game
speech.
It's
a speech. That's what it is.
And we caught really just the end of it of Coach Moss, because he himself said he really didn't have anything else to talk about. But what I thought was cool, dude, and this is I think one of the reasons why you brought it up, wanted to talk about it, is that he actually put it out to the floor. He put it out to the team if there's anything that wanted to be said. And I am not surprised, but somebody did step up.
Absolutely. And yeah, from what we got to see, it was short and sweet from Jason Moss, and he's absolutely right. There's really not much more he could say at that point. I mean, it is what it is. The Alouettes lost 27-3. It was, quite frankly, a terrible effort. I'm sure he didn't want to go out and call anybody out for it, but it is what it is, simply put. So as you said, he opened up the floor, said, listen, if you guys want to talk, you guys got something to say, the floor is yours. And Wesley Sutton, again, someone who has really come into his own as a defensive leader for this team. He stepped up and he basically addressed the guy. Said, listen, this isn't the kind of football we're not built for this. We're built better than this. We have to be better than this. You can't lose any of these opportunities. I mean, they're so short, and you know what it's like to play for a Grey Cup. You know what you have to do in order to get back to the dance. I'm paraphrasing a lot of this, and we put it on our socials, so make sure you go check it out, because it really is a fantastic speech by Wesley. I mean, That was true leadership out of him. I mean, that's a guy who understands his role within this team. He basically, guys, listen, we've got this. You got to believe it too. And you can tell he believes in his heart that this team can get back to the Grey Cup and win it again. They've got the talent to do it. They've got the motivation. They've got those things. They got to execute. They got to be better. And he basically said, guys, we've got this. You got to believe it too. And I just came away so impressed with how he did it. I mean, he wasn't screaming, he wasn't carrying on like a crazy person, like, you know, just like Coach Moss, the occasional F bomb, but I can live with that. But the message was clear. Like, this is a very good football team. This Montreal Alouettes organization is a great football team. You just got to start believing it now. You got to start showing it too. You got to make everybody believe, because, and as I said too, like, you can't act like the scrappy underdog that nobody loves. You're the man. You got to act like the man. You got to be the man. You know what they say? They say to be the man, you got to beat the man. Like, you got to be the man. That, simply put, this Alouettes team has to be better. Wesley realizes that and puts it on himself too. I have no doubt in my mind that he feels he's got to be better as well. And he showed it in that locker room. He showed what leadership is all about. And I'll tell you what, I think all those guys in there, they're ready to run through a wall along with Wesley. And I applaud Wesley Sutton for standing up, saying what needed to be said, and just showing that true leadership that this team absolutely needs. Like, this is the time where they need the leaders to step up and get it done, to lead by example. And there's no doubt in my mind, number 37 absolutely is a leader on this team, and he's ready to show it.
Yeah. Again, go check out our socials. I love when this is, other teams do certain things. Writers put out the entire press conference from that they have there. They usually have it set up. Bombers do the same thing. I wish the Alouettes kind of did that type of thing and taped it and put it out online. But I'm kind of liking the the inside look inside the locker room post game. Win or lose, just it I think it just goes to show how close knit these players actually are. And I love seeing this type of thing. So it's really cool.
And it is something that players have talked to us about in the past, like all throughout the season, is how everybody's bought in. Everybody is on board. So, I mean, I feel like the message does get through to these guys, and I think they realize what they have to do. It's just simply a matter of going out and doing it. And I think when the time comes, they're going to be ready. They have to be. I mean, if they want to get back to playing in the Grey Cup again, to be back-to-back champions, that's what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to step up, and this is the time. Like, you've really got to show everybody now show them what you're made of. And I think this Alouettes team has the talent. They've got the ability. They've got the horses, as they say. So, I mean, like, this is a team that absolutely can go back to and win the Grey Cup. But now they got to show it. Simply put, they got to make this happen. They got to show it. They got to, as I say, talk about it and be about it.
Yeah, exactly. As we have said before, we've been lucky enough to be able to tape our shows on a day where sometimes we're blessed with the information and the news that comes out from the league. And obviously, coming up to the end of the regular season, Cliff, it is that time where media members from across the country vote on, and their head coaches for the respective teams vote on who are being nominated as the year-end awards for the CFL. And those lists did come out today. And obviously, we wanted to go over the ones for the Alouettes, because we did look at we talked about it the other day, and with very interesting results, we were almost pretty spot on with our choices and the ones that were actually chosen by local media, weren't we?
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of us, to tell you the truth. I'm not really in the business of tooting my own horn or our own horn or anything like that. But I have to say, like, when the list came out, I was obviously curious to see just how our thoughts aligned with everybody else's, and pleasantly surprised to see that we're not so different. We're not so different. It's almost like we know, like you and I, Tim, know what we're talking about, which is always reassuring, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. Yes, it is. One of the funnier things on this list itself, Cliff, Tyrese Beverett was nominated as the most outstanding player unanimously, and he was also now nominated as Defensive Player of the Year. What I found was funny is that he was nominated as the most outstanding player, unanimously, but he wasn't for Defensive Player of the Year. My only thought for that would have been, because we've seen that happen before. My only thought is maybe Sankey got a vote or two. That's the only thing that I could think of without actually knowing what the actual results were. But I thought I thought that was very interesting because we've seen it before, not just with the Alouettes, but we've seen it before within the CFL.
Yeah, it's a rare occurrence. You would think automatically, well, listen, if that's your nom for most outstanding player, you would think he'd also be most outstanding in his other category as well. In this case, defense. But somehow it wasn't unanimous, and that's a real head scratcher. I think. I mean, as we've surmised, we figured it was most likely going to be Tyrese Beverett for most outstanding defensive player for sure, and also likely most outstanding player. You had made the argument too for Darnell Sankey, and you're not wrong. I mean, he definitely should have been. I'm sure he was under consideration as well, and maybe he did get those one or two votes that prevented Bev from being a unanimous choice for MODP. But it's still funny to look at. Like, wow, how do you not be unanimous in both? But
yeah,
it's interesting to say the least. Kind of funny when you think about it, but it is what it is, I suppose.
Yeah. The others we call the Canadian player. It is Isaac Ademi Berglund. Very well deserved.
I am a little surprised that wasn't unanimous. I mean, again, no slight to the other national players on the Alouettes, but I mean, I unless Tyson Philpott still got some votes despite being injured for 2/3 of the season, which again could happen. And listen, I can understand why you'd still make he was making a very strong case before he got injured as MO or most outstanding Canadian for sure. But I mean, I look at the body of work that Isaac has done this year, and quite frankly, when it comes to most outstanding Canadian, he truly is head and shoulders above everybody else on this team.
Yeah, for sure. Offensive lineman went to Pio the Stage. I think you recalled that one. You and I were both on when it came to special teams player James Letcher Jr. My question was who? I guess they probably could have gone with Maltos on that one. Also, I wouldn't be surprised if Maltos got a couple of votes for that. And
you wouldn't be mad either because he truly has been outstanding this year as well. But I mean, you look at what Letcher's been able to do overall, and it's understandable to see why he would be getting the nod for special teams.
Yeah. And then lastly, rookie is Jeffrey Kenton-Arku. You and I had gone back and forth on a couple of players, but I'm happy with my list, with the list that ended up coming out. We'll find out on the 31st who the finalists are. We're hoping there will be at least one Alouette within one of these. I think there will be, in my opinion. I think there will be. So we'll find out, and we'll talk about it once it does come out next week. So we're curious to see what happens. But I think one of the interesting things, if nobody looked at the actual full list that came from the CFL, is that and I haven't been able to reach out to anybody yet to find out when the last time this occurred. But for the first time in who knows how long, Cliff, only one quarterback was nominated for most outstanding player, because as everybody knows, quarterback is usually named. More than one is usually named in the top tier teams of the league. But this year, only one. And it was for a team that didn't make the playoffs. And it's a team that's under 500. So what does that mean for Bo Levi Mitchell, considering he did lead the league with, I think it was 5,000 plus yards? Only time will tell to see if he actually makes it to the next level.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll get punished, if you will, for playing for a team that did not make the playoffs. I'm of two opinions of this. I can understand why you wouldn't want that, because the Hamilton Tiger Cats did not make the playoffs. So, I mean, how do you have someone nominated for that? But let's not forget, this isn't a team award. This is an individual award. So Bo Levi did the thing this year. I mean, he put the stats together. He did an outstanding job. As far as I'm concerned, you want to talk about most outstanding player, you can definitely make a case for Bo Levi Mitchell. The numbers he put up this year were outstanding. You talk about outstanding player, that's outstanding. I mean, that's the definition of the award, right? So,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, personally, I'm call me a homer if you want, but I still think Tyrese Beverett should be getting the nod for the East. But I guess we'll see what happens. As you said, on the 31st, that's when the finalists are going to be done for the East and Western divisions. But I can completely understand why a lot of people would be going with Bo Levi as the most outstanding player, because one, it does typically go towards a quarterback, or they lean towards a quarterback for that one.
Yeah.
And two, he's got the numbers to back it up. So, I mean, you wouldn't necessarily be mad if that was the case, but it is still off-putting to see the fact that if he does get that nod, it's like, well, the Hamilton Tiger Cats didn't win. It's not most valuable. Let's not forget, it's not most valuable player award. It's
Right.
most outstanding. So, I mean, the people that can't differentiate between the two, that's probably where they're at when it comes to why is Bo Levi being nominated for this award, despite the fact that the Tiger Cats aren't in the playoffs. Let's not forget, there is a difference between outstanding and valuable.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Before we get to the interview with Darrin, I want to remind everybody that we are on social media. Many places you can find us. If you haven't missed any of the shows, you can head over to our main audio archive over at www.alouettesflightdeck.ca. And that now includes, from now going forward, any future episodes in audio of Flight Deck Live, which is our companion post-game show, which is done after every Alouettes game every week. We also are on X over at Alouettes Flight Deck, FL Deck, over on Facebook over at Alouettes Flight Deck Pod, Instagram, and YouTube. You got me again. YouTube over at Alouettes Flight Deck. Do not forget, also on YouTube, you can find the audio version. You can find the video version, and you can also find Flight Deck Live. They're over on our YouTube channel. Make sure if you do go over there, make sure you do like the button, you do subscribe, hit the like button, and make sure you do hit the notification bell to know that when we go live. Also, we are also having the Flight Deck Live broadcast on Twitch, and that is over at twitch.tv/Alouettes Flight Deck. If you are looking for merchandise, whether it be for the show or you just want to rep our logo, you can go over to our shop over at flightdeckgear.ca. And also, we're happy to say that we are a proud affiliate sponsor of Royal Retros. You don't need a time machine in order to get some sweet throwback merch. Just head over to royalretros.com. Use the code FlightDeck at checkout, and you will save 15%. 15% off your entire order. So again, that's over at royalretros.com. Cliff, as I said, guy that we've had on the show, right? And he's always fun to talk about, win or lose when it comes to these the Bombers and the Alouettes going head to head.
Absolutely. Always a good time when this gentleman joins us here on the Flight Deck. Friend of the show, 100%. And we are so excited to have him back on again to talk about this quote-unquote meaningless game, which is anything but. So without further ado, we are thrilled to be joined once again here on the Alouettes Flight Deck by the one, the only, from Bonfire Sports, Darrin Bauming. It's finally here, the last game of the regular season for the Montreal Alouettes, and we are so excited to be joined tonight to talk about their opponent, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, our friend from Bonfire Sports. Once again, welcome back to the Flight Deck, Darrin Bauming. Darrin, welcome again. We're so glad to have you back on.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I watch your show, and hey, how about this? Week 1, Grey Cup rematch. Week 21, Grey Cup rematch. Bookending the season with which should be a very interesting matchup.
And games that mean something.
Yes, yes.
That's the main thing for this week 21, because I'm sure everybody, including yourself, Darrin, hate those glorified preseason games at the end of the year. So
yeah. Well, if you look at the Blue Bombers, they kind of had a glorified preseason to start the season, right? They 0-4 start and 2-6 before they were able to turn things around. And they looked in preseason form the last time they played the Alouettes. What was the score of that game? 27-12. I don't even think that score was indicative of how much of a beatdown that was by the Owls.
And also the fact that Winnipeg's lone touchdown came essentially with a minute and change left in the fourth quarter.
Exactly.
I mean,
yeah.
It's wild. I mean, I was jokingly calling the Blue Bombers Nipeg for the first few weeks because there's no win. No win.
There's no win. No, but they've sure turned things around, right? Ripping off 8 straight wins and then doing it in pretty impressive fashion, right? Like, just got the schedule and results in front of me here. 25-0 over the BC Lions, and that's when Vernon Adams Jr. was MOP front runner, and the BC Lions had the number 1 offense in the league by a mile. Beat him again the next week handily, 20-11 in Vancouver, and then sweeping Labor Day in the Banjo Bowl, which is always a huge thing here in Winnipeg against the Rough Riders, and doing all of that, to sit at 7-6 after a 2-6 start, entering just their second bye. So, it's been impressive the way that they've, not just turned their season around, but the adversity that they fought through. A lot of injuries, more man games lost to injury amongst their starters. I think it was in week 16 than they did all of last season, which was a pretty heavy injury season as well. They're pretty healthy right now. So I think they're primed right now to enter the postseason. Well, I would say, they lost last week to, prior to their bye last week to the Toronto Argonauts in a real defensive battle. But I still think they're probably poised to go into the postseason, the hottest team in the league. What Alouettes team are we going to get, though? That's what I'm curious about.
You and me both, because it's funny because Montreal started off hot as a pistol, and then it felt like after they got back from the bye and then took on Edmonton, they won the game in Edmonton or against Edmonton at home, and then basically since Labor Day, they've looked. I mean, I don't want to say shaky necessarily, but it just felt like something wasn't quite right, and it started with Cody Fajardo, and did he come back from his injury a little too soon, or what it was exactly? I wish I could say, but it just felt like since that point, the Alouettes have looked good at times, but not great. Definitely not dominant. Definitely not the team that just beat the brakes off of everybody. It felt like to start the season.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the nature of football, right? You got to take your foot off the accelerator a little bit. I don't mean like completely off the gas, but you gotta, if you've been pushing hard and you got some bye weeks coming up, obviously with the first round bye, with them winning the East Division, and just ensuring that the health of your team, the mentality of your team is where it needs to be when the games matter most. And that's here in October and into November, obviously. I'm really impressed with Jason Moss as a head coach. I think he has learned so much through his time, both as a coordinator in the CFL and as a head coach. I think he learned a lot of hard lessons with Edmonton. I think he's learned some of those hard lessons with Montreal. You could even go back to a year ago. Year and a half ago, right? The beginning of last season, and the season before, and kind of figuring it all out. But he is an incredibly good coach and one of the best, if not, the best in the CFL. I think people in Winnipeg would probably argue with me on that, but I would give him the benefit of the doubt to ensure, to think that he's got his team in good shape, and that when the games really matter, he's going to be able to put that foot right back on the accelerator heavy.
Now let's talk about that, because a lot of people will say, well, you can't just turn it on. Like, you can't just all of a sudden, snap your fingers or flip a switch and all of a sudden, boom, you're playoff ready and you're ready to, play that one game to go to the Grey Cup. Like, how do you think, in your opinion, like when it comes to what Jason Moss has to do to rally his troops and keep them motivated, what's it going to take for people to, I guess, buy into the idea that they will be ready for the playoffs?
Well, you never know till you get it, right? Like that's pro sports. They play the games for a reason. And I think last year's Grey Cup was a perfect example of that. And almost, I could probably say nobody was giving Montreal a chance to win that game. And I remember, doing some analysis and hits on different radio stations and on my YouTube channel and talking about, hey, if Montreal's going to win this game, they've got to do it with Cody Fajardo, and he's got to do it with his arm. And I'm not patting myself on the back here, but I wasn't expecting that, but I knew that's what needed to happen. And sure enough, that 2-minute drill that they ran and that game-winning touchdown, just the way they played in the second half was incredible. And, but you never know what you're going to get. And the same way Winnipeg has been to 4 straight Grey Cups and lost the last 2 as the favorite in those games, you never really know. And let's remember how Montreal found its way to the Grey Cup last year, underdog the entire way. So is that going to be Ottawa in 2024? Is that going to be Saskatchewan or BC in 2024? Maybe. It's the crazy football league, right? CFL, that's what it stands for. No lead is safe. And, that counts, in the fourth quarter, but it also counts in the standings and in the playoffs too. You never know what's going to happen. But I don't know if I could put, the fan base there and your audience at ease. I think you just have to know that this is a championship team with a championship pedigree in Montreal. And, I would probably rest more assured than unassured with even with the way the season went, that things are going to be okay in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think Coach Molas would be one of those type of coaches. I think he would say that if you're not up or ready for the playoffs, then you shouldn't be on the team. And I think that's usually what Coach Moss preaches after every time we see a scrum, whether it be post game or post practice. He's always, even the players are saying that too. We've been able to go back and forth with a couple of guys via DM, Darrin, and they're like, "Don't worry. Yes, BC was a pile of garbage, but don't worry. It's we're okay." But I would be, I'd feel a lot worse if we were told, yeah, we kind of have a couple of issues here, but you know what? Just like last year, they've bought into what Coach Moss is preaching. So,
well, it's interesting you say that, because here in Winnipeg, team wins 8 straight games. They have a tough loss in their home finale. 14-11 loss to a team that seems to have the Blue Bombers number, and that's the Toronto Argonauts. And then a bye week, and now going into this game where they need a win or a tie to capture first place and host the West Final at Princess Auto Stadium here in Winnipeg. And the message from all of those players, and surely through the coaching staff to them, is whatever it takes. I wasn't in the locker room today, but the media that was there asking the guys about the player awards and all those sorts of things, they're like, none of that matters. It's all about the Montreal Alouettes. It's all about preparing for them. And in the words of Brady Oliveira, whatever it takes, they are going to go into Percival Molson Stadium on Saturday, and they're going to bring their best game. So, how Montreal wants to play this final game going into the playoffs. I think we're honestly going to get an incredibly physical game, because Winnipeg's going to bring it. And I don't believe Jason Moss or anybody on that Alouettes team is going to let the team that they faced in the Grey Cup last year go in and push them around in the final game of the regular season. I think this is going to be a playoff-like game, not because the Alouettes are in a playoff situation, but Winnipeg is, and Montreal needs to match that. So I'm expecting a really good game. Could be some, could be like a prize fight, despite being a matinee game on Saturday.
And I actually agree with you, because, being on what's on the line for Winnipeg, it kind of echoes from what I was just checking. I was just checking the actual line itself. I'm trying to remember the last time that the Alouettes were a 6.5 point underdog at home. But I think that really does.
Is that what the line is?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It really does show that it's showing. I think that's where the balance of the scale is: what Winnipeg has what they have, and then what Montreal has. So I was like 6.5 points. That's crazy at home, even with a 3-point home bump. That's still nuts.
So I'm not a huge gambler, but I do follow the lines and all that stuff, because it's pretty fascinating when these people in Nevada are setting lines on this Canadian football league, this weird thing. And, it's, I'm just reminded of "Oh Christmas Tree" rendition of "Oh Canada" in that posse game. I think they were playing the Blue Bombers actually in that one.
Yes.
But either way, generally speaking, home teams get a 3-point baseline number. Like a pick'em game would be a 3-point advantage for that home team. So to see Montreal 6.5 point dogs is a little bit surprising, but I also know that these lines are not set on what they expect to happen. it is really set on what they expect the money to go. So if everybody is going to be piling their money on the Blue Bombers, well, let's make it a touchdown that they need to win by. So nobody's going to, just throw a bunch of money and get a fat line to take advantage of. So I think the game is going to be a lot closer than that. No question.
I'm hoping too. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting too. I mean, obviously, you look at the season itself between the last two games, Darren, between when we first played at the beginning of the year and now, obviously the Bombers have gone through quite a bit. I mean, both teams have really. I mean, I think Alouettes again have had a ton of people on the 6th game this year. It's just absolutely mind-boggling how many people have been hurt. Try to let our listeners and viewers know the differences between the Bombers team week 1 versus now. What have the Bombers had to go through in order to get to this point?
Yeah. Well, there's always expectation. I think I could probably talk for 10 minutes on expectation of this Blue Bombers team. That's kind of been the powerhouse, perennial favorite franchise for the better part of a half a decade now. But the adversity that they faced was a training camp that I don't think went particularly well. As far as players availability and all of that sort of thing. We have to remember Brady Oliveira missed a ton of time in training camp and then was injured week 1, didn't play week 2. Now he's this team's most outstanding Canadian and most outstanding player nominee, and unanimously so amongst the us voters here in Winnipeg. But I would say, new special teams coordinator, no Janarian Grant, no concrete returner this season, and a new defensive coordinator in Jordan Younger, who took over from Richie Hall, and Richie Hall being the veteran player and coach and legend in this league that he is, still in the building, still providing that advisement and coaching and all that, but not knowing what this Jordan Younger defense would be all about. And then starting a whole bunch of rookies Tyrell Ford's not a rookie, but a first year starter after, a team as a year as a special teams player, and then a year in the NFL and waiting for that opportunity after getting cut by the Green Bay Packers back in Winnipeg for 2024. And it's like, wow, they're going to start a Canadian at corner. Well, now he's the team's most outstanding defensive player nominee. And, having been amongst the league leaders in interceptions, and the injuries on the defensive line, I think were really paramount early going, because when you have a younger back end and changes in the linebacking core, you need pressure on the quarterback. And yeah, Willie Jefferson's been healthy all season, but their starting D line, it was Cameron Lawson, Canadian defensive tackle. It was Miles Fox, an American defensive tackle. It was Taiwan Garbett, and then Celestin Haba. Both of them had long-term injuries this season. And in the case of Garbett, who was supposed to be the starter coming out of training camp, he was injured in that second preseason game as well. So lots of different pieces coming in and out, new defensive coordinator, a really tepid start offensively for Zach Collaros with a lot of different receivers. Kenny Lawler got injured week 1. Dalton Schoen injured early in the season and has been out for the season. And I can't say enough about how huge that injury was and is in the effect it's had on this Blue Bombers offense. He has been that safety valve, that safety blanket, that go-to guy for Zach Collaros for the 2 years he's been in this league. And he's an incredible player. I think not enough people talk about Dalton Schoen and what he brings, in line with Kenny Lawler and Geno Lewis and the Phil Potts and those top players at the receiver position across the entire league. So a lot of moving pieces, a lot of uncertainty and changes early. And then it all starts with a beatdown by the Grey Cup champion Montreal Alouettes in that Grey Cup rematch. And it just kind of like, you stumble out of the gate and you trip on your own heel, and now you're face down in the dirt and you got to clean yourself off. And oh boy, now you've gone a month without a win, being 0-4. And then just playing some ugly football before they were able to turn things around at 2-6. So that's the adversity Winnipeg has faced. But with how strong a coach Mike O'Shea is in just the way he shapes the mentality of this team in the locker room, on the field, inside the facility, wherever it might be, I think has really gone super, super far in ensuring this team to know, to a man, that things were going to be okay as long as they put in the work, as long as they keep playing hard and knowing that they're a good football team despite the record. And I think that was a huge reason why they were able to turn this season around. And big changes on the offensive line too. I haven't even mentioned that. Sometimes it takes a couple months for, your new right tackle, your new left guard, your second year starting center, and veteran pieces in Pat Neufeld at right guard and Stanley Bryant at left tackle to kind of ease everybody into this, new look and feel of the identity of this Blue Bombers team. It's always been at the line of scrimmage. That's why Brady Oliveira puts up the big numbers and why Zach Collaros has been able to be a winning quarterback in this league, because they've given him time. When Winnipeg loses, it's generally because the other team finds ways to get to him and hurry him. So I think that's maybe the long-winded explanation of the type of season it's been here in Winnipeg. But things obviously have stabilized, and, no surprise really that they are a favorite, especially out of the West, going into the playoffs.
Now, let's talk about Brady Oliveira, because I'm not surprised that he was the most outstanding nominee for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and of course, most outstanding Canadian. But his numbers this year are quite what they were last year. And last year he was, as far as I'm concerned, he should have been the most outstanding player winner. But what is it about this year that's different for Oliveira, as far as, like, he's not racking up the big numbers per se, but he's still contributing to this team? Like, what is it about him that still makes him an outstanding player?
I honestly feel not that it was, the resort to default selection, but it definitely wasn't a Zach Collaros year. That's for sure. Kenny Lawler had a third of the season on the injured list. A lot of young receivers in Ontario Wilson, who's their most outstanding rookie nominee, Keurig Wheatfall, another young player, Kevin Sklersius, a second-round pick. All of those guys starting a lot of games this year, a lot of youth. So not saying that it was a default to Brady Oliveira. When you see him run, when you see how dominant he can be, I think it's a no-brainer to vote for him, at least in my opinion. Well, really everybody here in Winnipeg agreed. It was a unanimous most outstanding Canadian and most outstanding player nominee for Oliveira once again. But I think it's because the offense was so lukewarm all season, because the offensive line has had so much change and they weren't that dominant group they have been over the last couple of years, where Brady's been 1,000-yard rusher. That it's pretty outstanding how good he is and how his numbers, they're not quite last year, but I mean, last year was an all-world year for the Blue Bombers offense as a whole. So when you are not beating teams downfield and you don't have Lawler and Dembski and Schoen all putting up 1,000-yard seasons and Collaros throwing for 4,500, 5,000, whatever it may be, you don't have that, and Brady's still 1,000-yard rusher and contributing in the receiving game the way he does, and just locking down games. I think that's the most impressive thing that he does, is they put the ball in his belly with 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and next thing you know, it's the 3-minute warning, and the game's over. He really does just pick up first downs and kill the clock. But being on an offense like this and still being able to do what he has done, I think is the reason why he is the most outstanding player here in Winnipeg. Is he going to be able to take on a Roland Milligan in Saskatchewan? I'm not sure. We'll see how the rest of the Western voters decide. Yeah,
it's definitely it'll be interesting for sure, because you take a look at this MOP race already, and I mean, the fact that I think Tim alluded to it earlier, that there's only one quarterback amongst the all 9 nominees.
Right.
Like this used to be like the quarterback award, and now it's wide open, which is absolutely incredible. But I mean,
I don't hate it.
No,
I don't hate it.
It's, and that's the thing. It shouldn't feel like most outstanding player is automatically a quarterback, because yes, they are, the straw that stirs the drink. But at the same time, there are also a lot of other players that can do outstanding stuff as well. And even if you make the argument, well, there's the most outstanding defensive player and most outstanding Canadian and so on and so forth. But yeah, it's refreshing to say the least that we've got this diversity. Isn't that the thing that CFL talks about, is diversity?
Right. Diversity is strength. Yeah, I absolutely agree. Everybody knows the quarterbacks. They are the stars of this league, and there's so many good ones. Frankly, a couple of teams, like 2 quarterbacks that are really, really good on a couple teams in this league. But to see one quarterback be amongst the league nominees and it's on a non-playoff team in the Hamilton Tiger Cats is shocking. It really is. This is a quarterback driven league. But I think it can be a good thing to see Gary Peters, to see Roland Milligan, to see Tyrese Beverett, get their due, is a great thing. There's so many good defensive players, in particular defensive backs in this league, that the tackle numbers don't rack up. The interception numbers don't rack up because they don't get thrown at a lot, that are so good. Opposing offenses avoid them, that I don't think we pay enough attention to in this league. We need to celebrate those guys. So, good on the voters for, giving the defensive guys a little bit of love. I know some defensive alumni in this league say, well, there's a most outstanding offensive lineman award. Why isn't there a most outstanding defensive lineman award? Why isn't there a most outstanding offensive player if there's a most outstanding defensive player? I think some of these things need to be re-explored, because MOP shouldn't automatically go to an offensive player. And more players on defense, I think, deserve recognition beyond all-star votes. Also, the East-West all-star voting, I don't like that as well. If you have the 3 best linebackers in the league all in one division, somebody's getting left off. I think that's terrible. So, safety, the 2 best safeties in the league are both on East Division teams. One of them's getting left off. I think that's a travesty, to be honest.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, whether you name it the All CFL now or you call it the CFL All Stars, it's still the same exact thing at the end of the day. So
yeah, let's have a Pro Bowl. We'll all go to Regina for a Pro Bowl in February. What do you say?
Oh yeah.
Let me tell you, there's a ton of people that would be all in for that, players included. So
absolutely. Hey, what happened to CFL week? Right, we used to maybe do that.
Yeah. Right. I mean, Ottawa was supposed to get the next one, and then it just kind of disappeared into the ether, and people just get people are still waxing nostalgic for CFL week, and I'm like, I'm all for it too. Why not?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going to do like they did before when they put the combine with it as well. I mean, to me, I think it's brilliant. But
I know you said you're not a betting man there, Darren. Just out of curiosity, what do you think the chances are that we're going to have 2 defensive guys, one from the East, one from the West, going up against each other for the MOP?
Oh, that's a great question. I just want to look at the ballot here in the East quickly. Do I have it? I don't know if I have it.
Bo Levi, Kadeem Carey, Justin Hardy, Tyrese Beverett.
Yeah, so it would have to be Beverett, right? Mm-hmm. I'm a huge Tyrese Beverett guy. He actually helped me win my CFL fantasy league last year because I had him and a Darius Pickett, and that's the reason I won, because those guys just racked up the defensive plays. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be surprised to see Roland Milligan come out of the West. It's going to be tough for Beverett, and I would love to say it on the Alouettes Flight Deck podcast, that he's going to be the guy. But voters will tend to lean towards their own teams, and when they're unsure, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'll correct myself. A quarterback on a non-playoff team, a tailback. Yeah, he could do it. I think the chances are good. I don't know if I could give you a number like 6-1, but how about 4.5 to 1? Because that would be a 9 to 2 odds if you get those two guys out of 9. So I don't
Yeah.
know. That
Well,
math doesn't check out. I don't
We'll
know.
find out in 8 days anyways, but I was just curious.
Yeah,
But
I think it would be awesome. I would love to see that.
worst case scenario, we check in with our folks in Vegas, come up with those crazy lines, and I'm sure they'll throw a little action towards our way.
Yeah, absolutely. Why not?
So when it comes to this coming Saturday, I mean, we know what's at stake for both teams. Essentially, as you said, Winnipeg's got a little bit more juice in it as far as they want to win, so they get the bye for the Western Final. What do you think it's going to take for Winnipeg to get out of this game, as barring injury, anything like that? Like, what's it going to take for Winnipeg to come away with this win, as far as just planning their work and working their plan?
Yeah. I'm not going to reiterate, kind of what I said earlier, but I think it does tell the story that I expect to see. And that's, in the words of Brady Oliveira, whatever it takes. I think Winnipeg will throw absolutely everything, the kitchen sink and all, into this game. They want to buy. Absolutely. And they need a win or a tie to get that buy, but they had a bye last week. They had a bye in week 15. They're in very good shape physically. Brandon Alexander, their starting safety, has been nicked up, didn't practice this week, but I think they have enough horses, if you will, to make some adjustments and kick Dietrich Nichols back to safety, and things will be okay. But they're in very, very good shape health-wise. So I don't see them, even if they had the luxury, they don't need to rest. They don't need to be cautious. I think they know that, hey, it's playoffs now, and they're going to play their best football and throw everything they can, into every game that they play. So what's it going to take? It's going to take them winning the physical battle. If you are going to go on the road and play against a team that kicked the crap out of you in week 1, upset you in the Grey Cup, and have more wins than any other team in the league, I think you need to go in there and win the physical battle. It's not going to be easy. So defensively, it's about finishing absolutely every play. Offensively, it's about running the football, and it's about the receivers not just being fleet-footed and making big catches. They've got to go block in the pass game as much as the run game. And special teams. I think that's what this Blue Bombers team really hangs their hat on, winning the special teams battle. And that's not, creating big returns or, ensuring that Montreal's return game doesn't get going. I think it's about establishing that physical presence, being that maniac, if you will, having that screw loose, a little bit looser than the opponent. I think that's how you win a special teams battle. I think that's how you win the physical tilt in a game, and that's doing a little bit more to intimidate your opponent, if you will. Hit harder, finish everything, play to the echo of the whistle. And Winnipeg, with, I won't say nothing to lose, but physically having nothing to lose and throwing everything into this game and every game the rest of the way, that's what I expect them to do. So, and I think that's what it's going to take.
Couldn't say it better myself. Last question before we let you go. Let's say Winnipeg does not only get the win on Saturday, but they run the table, make their way back to the Grey Cup. Do we restart the dynasty talk for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, considering it'll be their 5th straight Grey Cup appearance?
Yeah, if it's 3 wins, 3 cup wins in 5 appearances, not just 5. Like, wouldn't it be a dynasty if a team won 3 Grey Cups in 5 seasons? But to go to 5 straight and win 3, they need to win it. They absolutely need to win it. But it's the big D word in Winnipeg, right? Mm-hmm. It's people don't want to say it because that conversation was happening in that 3rd straight Grey Cup game in Regina, a building that they play incredibly well in, both in the regular season and in the playoffs. I think they're undefeated at Mosaic until that Grey Cup game. And losing to Chad Kelly taking over from McLeod Bethel Thompson and that pretty heroic final drive and some other things that happened too. Robbie Smith with a big block kick and a defensive play that was really the difference. So it is, I don't know, not a dirty word, but kind of like an avoided word in
Taboo.
Winnipeg, but absolutely, if you win 3 and you go to 5 straight, I think that would definitely and comfortably be a dynasty, but they got to get there first. They've got 1, 2, they got at least 2 games, maybe 3 that they need to win in order to just get to that game in Vancouver.
Mm-hmm. That's what it's all about. Like you said, you got to play the games and you got to win. Simple as that.
Yep.
Well, it's going to be an exciting game no matter what, I think, this coming Saturday. Definitely looking forward to it as well. Darrin, before we let you go, you want to drop your links, let us know where we can find you. This is your time. Go have at it.
I appreciate that, guys. Thanks so much. We do live pregame and postgame coverage on our YouTube channel. It's on Facebook and everywhere else. You can find links to everything. bonfiresports.ca, social media, Bonfire WPG, that being Bonfire Winnipeg, of course. But the legend, Chris Walby, after 16 years in the league and widely regarded as the greatest Canadian offensive lineman to ever play in this game. He then called 10 Grey Cups on CBC TV. We are in our 4th season on YouTube and 10th season together doing pregame coverage. So we have a ton of fun. The guy is a blast, absolutely hilarious dude. So even if you're not a Bombers fan, come join us. Check it out. We play some game highlights in the pregame and the postgame show. But yeah, again, you can find everything on bonfiresports.ca. I do appreciate that, guys. Thank you.
Awesome. Once again, thank you so much for joining us here on the Alouettes Flight Deck. We appreciate it. And let's just hope for a really good match this coming Saturday.
Absolutely. I love the show, guys. Thanks for having me. And you call me again soon. Maybe we'll do a playoff edition of this.
Sure. Well, why not?
Like you said, we're all going to be in Vancouver. Maybe, hopefully, it's a rematch of last year. That'd be fun.
Absolutely. Well, we'll do it. Maybe we'll do it from the FRC Hospitality Suite. What do you say?
Ooh. There you go.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Again, always great having Darrin come on the show, man, because it's as he said, how long he's been on that show and how long he's been working, with Wallaby and stuff like that, man. It's just he knows his stuff. And I mean, again, they too have their own post game show too that are after every Blue Bombers game. So make sure you do catch them. But before you have to watch us first, and then you can go and watch them this week. So
exactly, and I believe they've got the same sort of setup as we do. Like you can either watch it live or watch it after the fact. So yeah, check out us first, please, and then definitely after that, go check out Darrin, Chris Walby, the legendary Chris Walby. And Zach Schnitzer as well. Gotta give those guys some love as well. So yeah, definitely check out Bonfire Sports to get everything Blue Bombers from those guys.
Yeah. Just as a reminder that because I was sick for the last home game, is that we are going to be having our second annual meet and greet this Saturday from 12:30 to 2 over at Mount Royal Park. Won't be able to miss this. It's over near the same location where it usually is for the tailgating. Look for the banner. We got some giveaways coming up this week. Limited giveaways. So make sure you do come over or at least just say hi. If you already have a Cartoon Bird 56 shirt or a logo shirt, just come on by. At least say hi. You're more than welcome to join us. And as I said, we're doing this for you, the fans. So it's just a matter of there. Talk about Alouettes, talk about everything you want to talk about, and go from there. Because as I said, without you guys, we'd be talking to ourselves.
Pretty much, and yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing each and every one of you. Like I said, sad that we couldn't do it for the Thanksgiving game as we did last year, but God willing, the weather will be at least a little more decent, and Tim and I will be 100% health, so that there'll be no excuses. So come on out, come show us the love, because we're ready to give it back to you as well. So really excited for this fan meetup. And I mean, what better way to celebrate the regular season finale for the Montreal Alouettes than come to the tailgate? Always a great time at the tailgate as well. So yeah, definitely come by for that. Come show the love. And we're looking forward to seeing each and every one of you out there.
Yep. I'll be close. I think I'll be close to 100%. Close. We'll see. But I'll be there. Either way, I'll be there. So,
well, as I say, close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. So,
well, this will be close. As I mentioned before, the Bombers matchup itself, and I know we brought it up in the conversation with Darrin. How surprised were you that the current line is 6.5 points?
Well, they clearly saw the game last Saturday in BC, so they're like, "Wow, these guys suck." So, but I think there is a lot. You look at that line, and at first glance, you're like, "Really?" But again, we can't overstate the fact that Winnipeg has something to play for. They truly do.
Agreed. Yeah.
Montreal has to be motivated to a degree, but I mean, Winnipeg truly, if they win this game on Saturday, they will be hosting the Western Final. They will be getting that bye week, the same one that the Alouettes are going to be having next week. And that's huge. I mean, let's make no mistake about it. I mean, like, you still have to get up and be ready to go for that game. But at the same time, if you've got guys that are nicked up, that are guys that are, running a little ragged, like, this gives them an extra week to recuperate, to get ready. It gives the coaches a chance to scheme and plan for their opponent, whether it's going to be this team or that team. There is an advantage to having the bye week, 100%. I mean, you still got to show up and play. There's no question about that. But Winnipeg obviously wants that. They want to be hosting. They're going to be hosting a playoff game no matter what. But obviously, they want it to be the Western Final as opposed to the Western Semifinal. Because if the Alouettes win and the Saskatchewan Roughriders beat Calgary, which more than likely they will, then it's Saskatchewan hosting the Western Final.
I know.
And then Winnipeg has to receive the BC Lions, beat them, and go to Regina for the opportunity to go to the Grey Cup. So obviously Winnipeg's going to come hungry, ready to go, ready to show that they are who they say they are. I mean, let's be honest, the first part of the year for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers was tough, to say the least. I mean, at one point they were 2-6, and a lot of people wrote them off. And I can't say I wrote them off, but at the same time, I was like, wow, that something's got to give for this team. It's so hard to believe that this team, who's been in the last 4 Grey Cup games, all of a sudden forgot how to play football. But they got to figure it out. They hit a couple of rough patches to start the season, but they got their act together. They figured it out. They started winning. They went on a run, a major run. And aside from that loss to the Toronto Argonauts at home, they've arguably been the hottest team in the Canadian Football League. And they're bringing that to Montreal with the idea that this team at one point was 2-6, and the playoffs seemed like, a pipe dream. Now they have a chance. If they go into this game at Percival Wilson Stadium and they win, they will be hosting the Western Final. That is huge. Obviously, they're ready to go. So I can completely understand why the odds makers would look at this game and say, you know what? I think Winnipeg's going to bring everything for this game. They're going to want to do everything they can to win. They're definitely going to be piling on the points. So winning by a touchdown is very feasible for Winnipeg, I think. I think that they'll be just that much motivated to go into Montreal, get the win, get the bye week, and wait for the winner of what would ultimately be Saskatchewan versus BC.
Yeah. Today was the Alouettes' first day of practice. And these are the current players who did not practice yet in this. I'm curious to know where this is going to go, especially for the playoffs. But when Mustafa Johnson did not practice again today. Yep. Tyson Otis Copeland listed as abdominals. He did not practice. Dominic Davis, which we were talking about earlier, back, did not practice. I'm not surprised there. Joshua Donovan, not surprised there. Knee did not practice. And according to today's transaction wire clip, Joshua is listed as being transferred to the 1-game injured list. So we'll see what happens if that's the full case. But I would imagine so, considering that it was listed as in today's transaction. So it's very possible Joshua will not be playing. But if anybody saw the game last week, they know what we're understanding what we're talking about. And same thing, Isaac Ademi Berkland also listed as a quad issue, but did not practice. I think if people saw him too, I think he kind of slipped. I guess that's the best way to describe it. But you could see him coming off the field that he was limping a little bit. But I know he did go back in. Maybe it's just a day thing. I think his coach has said before, these guys are ready. They don't necessarily need to practice every day. We did find out today, by the way, speaking of, that both Walter Fletcher and Austin Mack will be suiting up again for the Alouettes this week versus Winnipeg. So we can already report on them. Just a matter of, I guess, how long these guys are going to play and where they'll be on the depth chart. And then again, also something that we talked about, thoughts on Cody Fajardo. How much do you think he's going to play? I think he will start. I think I think we're saying before with Darrin, I think he'll play 3 quarters, but Darrin made a good point of why Cody should play the entire game. What are your thoughts? How long do you think Cody's going to play for?
Truly, I do think a lot of the guys, if not all of them, are going to be on a pitch count of some sort. I think that you can't rest everybody, obviously. You can't start everybody either, but you can't rest everybody too. I think knowing full well they've got to go into this game, they got to play this game, they got to get some reps in before going to the Eastern Final. Because let's not forget, as much as we talked about building that momentum and trying to finish the season on a positive note and establish something for the Eastern Final. At the same time, I don't see this team wanting to burn anybody out in particular, especially Cody Fajardo.
Yeah,
I think realistically, as Darrin said, a lot will depend on what the score is. I mean, if the Alouettes are just getting run up on, then pull the ripcord. Cody's done. We're not going to risk him for anything like that. If it's a tightly contested affair, I can see him maybe fighting it out, trying to get the W. As I said, go into the playoffs with that good feeling, that momentum. I would like to see Davis Alexander get some honest reps as well. I feel like, yes, he did get reps in the second half against BC, but I mean, I hate to say it, but I really felt that they were dogging it throughout that game. And I get it. They're obviously going to say no, they weren't. But I get why they would be conservative. I get why they would not go balls to the wall in that particular game.
Yeah.
This game, you definitely have to show up for this game. You don't necessarily have to, leave it all out on the field or, kill yourself in the process for this game. But at the same time, you definitely have to get some reps in. You definitely have to, do the things that we've come to expect, especially this being the home finale as well. You want to finish the regular season on a good note, as I said. You want to make sure that you leave no doubt that you are the reigning, defending, undisputed Grey Cup champions, and you have every intention to remain that way. Best way to do that is to put together a solid game plan, play this Winnipeg Blue Bombers team as tough as you can. If you get the W, fantastic. If you're going to lose, at least don't embarrass yourself in the process and don't get hurt. I think that's really the key right now for the Alouettes. I mean, obviously you want to get the W, you want to go in with that good feeling, but at the same time, this is maybe one of those times where a moral victory would count so to speak. I mean, if you come out of this game relatively unscathed, you pad your stats a little bit, and okay, you didn't get the W, but you're still going into the playoffs with that good feeling, like, yeah, we've got this. Whoever we face, we've got this. To me, like I said, I think that would be a moral victory and one that you can actually be proud of.
Yeah. For me, I think the interesting thing will be to see what the depth chart looks like. And I think it really will start from there. But I kind of agree. I think this, depending on what the score is, it will depend on how long some of these guys really go for. So I think Fletch will probably play for most. I wouldn't be surprised if Fletch pays 75%, Austin plays for 75%. But we'll see. We'll see. As I said, this game really has gone from a meaningless preseason game to something that has meaning, and I'm sure it would be a hell of a lot different if both these teams are playing with nothing on the line. For the Alouettes, obviously, it's the chance to win 13, and for the Bombers, it's the chance to win and host the West the West Final. So,
yeah, I mean, that's the thing. They're guaranteed a playoff game at home no matter what. But obviously, you want it to be the Western Final. You want to have another team come to your barn and play, and that's exactly what the Alouettes have done. They've set it up so that it's either going to be Ottawa or Toronto that's coming to Montreal on November 9th. No doubt, Winnipeg's thinking we want that for ourselves too. And again, it doesn't guarantee you're going to get to the Grey Cup, but it definitely makes the road just a little bit easier on you. Which, believe me, at this time of year, these guys are banged up. These guys are sore. These guys they've been through it already. They just want to do what they can to get to the game, get to the Grey Cup, and just win the whole thing. And again, hosting the Eastern or Western Final isn't a guarantee, but it definitely helps make the voyage just a little bit easier.
Yeah. 3 roster moves. One we've already mentioned about Joshua Donovan. As of today's transactions, he was transferred to the single game injury list. Philippe Lemieux-Cardinal was re-added to the practice roster. And I guess the guy who's very possible may get some reps this week, considering where he was listed. But Tyjon Lindsey, a wide receiver out of Oregon State, has been added from the practice roster to the main game roster. So should be interesting.
Yeah, what I think will be interesting. I'm curious to see, because during training camp and also in the preseason, he got some reps as a returner. So I wonder if James Letcher is. I have no doubt Letcher is going to play and play his usual awesome game. But I wonder if maybe we kind of give him a chance to rest a little bit as well before the Eastern Final, and maybe let both Sean Thomas Erlington and Tyjon Lindsey get some reps at returner as well, which again, not a bad thing. Not a bad thing to have an extra returner, like someone that you can count on. If God forbid something were to happen to Letcher, then you can at least tap him on the shoulder and say, "You're next."
That's the thing. Remember what happened to the Grey Cup last year when Letcher had a lower ankle injury or high ankle injury. Tyson Philpott stepped in. It's a good question. Who's our number 2? It's a very good, because Tyson knew what to do because he'd done it before in the past.
That's right.
It's a very good observation, Cliff. Very good observation. It's curious to see who would be our number 2 in that certain case. But Fletch could easily make a name for himself, obviously, in the playoffs. Any other? Now, obviously, just to mention to everybody, yes, we will be back for Flightdeck Live. So stay tuned for all of our socials for all that information. With the game being at 3, ending around 6. Tentatively, I'd probably say somewhere around 7 p.m., 6:45, 7 p.m. I guess we could say for the broadcast, but stay tuned to our socials for that.
Also, too, if you haven't already, as Tim mentioned before, if you're on YouTube, hit the notification bell so you will get notified when we do go live. If you're following us on X or Facebook, make sure you hit that notification. You turn your notifications on so that you know that when we do go live, you get it right away and you won't miss a thing.
Yep. Cliff and I haven't talked yet. I understand that there is a bye week coming up next week. We're going to determine what we're going to do for that one. Obviously, we will be back for the Eastern Final, but we stay tuned to our socials for what we're going to do. We have not made official plans yet on what we're going to do with the show, but just stay tuned for that. Other than that, Cliff, I am looking forward to seeing everybody this week after missing the last game. And as I said, I'll be hopefully to be close to 100%, but I will be there nonetheless to see Alouettes Nation and everybody there. So,
well, that's it. I mean, it's kind of sad to think about. This is the second to last football game we'll be able to go to in Montreal in 2024. So, yeah, folks. I mean, as we talked about, over 21,000 tickets have been sold already. If you haven't already, I mean, come join us. I mean, it's going to be a festive, fun atmosphere, as always, at Percival Molson. So you don't want to miss out. I mean, if you've got to watch the game on CTV, then so be it. But if you're in the area and the game hasn't been announced as sold out, make sure you get your tickets and come on board.
Exactly. So again, stay tuned to all of our socials for any information that may come across the wire. Depth charts on Friday, on Saturday, Friday, et cetera. But either way, we will talk to you soon. So for everybody here at the Alouettes Flight Deck, for Cliffy D, I'm Tim Capper. We're on Final Approach.